Alright, what's up guys, Zero here, and today I have for you some a deck profile for one of the many clans, as in i.e. all the clans that got support from Fire's Collection. Just a heads up, I might just rapid fire a bunch of these Fire's Collection decks that are basically just like old decks plus like one or two new strides. First off, we're starting today off with Metalborgs. I think this is probably the biggest winner out of Fighters Collection, in my opinion. The Metalborg Stride really did push this deck into a very playable deck. Before I thought this deck was complete garbage, unplayable. Why are you even looking at this? But now, with the inclusion of a one Stride, this deck, in my opinion, has jumped from unplayable dog shit, horrendous garbage to a very playable and competent deck. Not amazing or anything, but a very playable deck. So, without further ado, here is my list. So I have played around different things, but this is what I ultimately ended up on. First off, we'll just go over from top to bottom as per usual. First off, the starter is the Metalborg Local Battler. So it has a skill where it puts itself into Soul to give your Vanguard 5k if you're in Legion plus an extra 5k. That skill is cool, it's there, and it is text on the card, but we play this mainly because it has resist. It has resist, it's a resist booster, never a bad thing to have, right? So it resists booster with occasional upsides, but this card is. Next up, we have for the Stride Fodder. I don't know the name of this card, nor do I care. It is Stride Fodder. It searches for a card that doesn't even exist in this game yet. So yeah, Stride Fodder. PG, Countercharge PG. Every clan has one of these now because of Fire's Collection. So no reason to not play it because your other PGs weren't Metalborg name anyways, and you didn't really need Metalborg names to begin with. So no reason not to play the Countercharge PGs. Always a good thing to have these if you have them, and you will always play them if you have them. Next off, finally to a Metalborg, the Yunbot. So its skill is on play. Your Vanguard's a Metalborg. CB1, and you give your Vanguard the skill on hit draw 1. And then furthermore, if it is in Legion, if your Vanguard is in Legion, also countercharge 1. So you can slap this down turn 2, just get like a draw, and then later on in the game, if you're on a Sinbuster and you don't want a Legion, or if you're on your first Legion turn, you can slam this down to give it on hit draw 1, and you also just draw 1. Then you also countercharge back, so that's pretty nice. And finally, the last one is the Metalborg Mist Ghost. So his skill is on play, CB1, give your Vanguard 4k. If you're in Legion, an additional 4k. So buff your Vanguard, always nice, never a bad thing. For one kind of blast, it's whatever. Just a filler one of, doesn't really matter. Yunbot is definitely like the only like actual good Metalborg green one in this deck. So yeah, you actually could play Laurel in this. I actually completely forgot about that card. So Laurel probably is actually a better one. So I'm just gonna swap it out right now in the middle of the deck profile. Because I don't think this deck actually needs that much extra power. So, well, in the middle of the deck profile, we will swap a card out. First time for everything, right? So yeah, first, we'll play one Laurel on this list instead, just as a Saki one of you can draw into enough to feel too bad about. This deck doesn't really care about Metalborg name, and with the introduction of the Stride, you don't really care for power either. You definitely do not mind extra Stride checks though. So yeah, we'll just swap it for the one Laurel. Well, I guess we'll go over it now. It's on hit, rest 4, stay in when your Vanguard hits anything, rest 4, stand it. It's an okay card, it's fine. More Trijeck's never a bad thing, right? So yeah. That's it for the grade 1s, onwards to the grade 2s. First off, the mate to the Sin Buster is the Buster. And his skill is, when you Legion, you give your Vanguard 4k, and the skill, when your Vanguard attacks, retire one of your opponent's free cards. So, if you have multiple of these, you can stack multiples of these. So, for example, if you just have 2 of these on the board, you can give your Vanguard 8k, so it hits whatever power threshold it needs to. It also gives it on attack retire 1, and if you do it twice, you can try 2 back row, so on and so forth. So, pretty good card. Next off, we have the Lionetter, so it is the Metalborg 12k attacker. It is also the mate to the Dryon, but we're only playing one of the Dryon, but we still play this because 12k attackers are never a bad thing, because solo attackers are always nice to have. Next up, we are playing the Russell Blizzard. His skill is on play, CB1, give your Vanguard plus 4k. If you're in Legion, an additional 4k. So, again, extra power is never a bad thing. Sometimes you do need to hit some power thresholds, but it's mainly just here because you have nothing better to play. Honestly speaking, everything else just kind of sucks, and the non-metal boards aren't exactly amazing either. So, extra power is not a bad thing just because you can let it hit over heal guard threshold, which is pretty okay. And then finally, the one of is the Digerion. It's a 10k vanilla. Nothing else. It's just a 10k vanilla. It's a Metalborg name. I'm sure if you looked a little closer, you could probably find other things that play in the grade 2 slots, but these cards are fine for what they are. Your rears in Deep Police or usually end up stuff just get that buffs your Vanguard anyway, so not much of a difference here. So yeah, these are all okay cards, nothing amazing, nothing terrible. Urbuster's definitely the best grade 2 here by far, so yeah. That's it for grade 2s, and finally for grade 3s, we have our main ride, the Sin Buster. His skill is, first like he legions with the Urbuster like I said before, his skill is, when it's in attacks Vanguard, if you're in Legion and your power is 30k or greater, you glory check your opponent. That's okay. Only issue is there's no crit on the Sin Buster, meaning your opponent has to be F5, and that's very hard, and that's why this card was never good, because it required your opponent to actually be F5 to glory check them, so that's pretty whatever. But the skill that does make him good is his other skill is when it attacks, if your power is 20k or higher, you get to draw a card. And yeah, both of these skills account for the power that you get from when you're boosted. So it's not just by itself. If you boost with like a 5 or 7k, it still applies that power to the count of 30 or 20. So yeah. Now the reason why this card's played in your main ride is because it has the draw one skill. The second skill basically it's there. Sometimes it comes up, but usually you want to ride this just because on that turn where you're forced to Legion to get the extra heart for the Heavy Duke, the Metalborgs Stride. Drawing one is better than getting a crit with the Dryon. So yeah. So this comes up. The glory skill doesn't come up, but the draw skill does come up. So that's why this is your main ride. And because you don't want to go into Dryon and he's your main ride, we are playing 4 Baron Graders. And his skill is Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 1, Counter Blast 1. Search your deck for a card that has a Legion and ride it and give it 3k. So this card is, as far as I'm concerned, 4 extra copies of Sin Buster. And his other skills, your Vanguard and Metalborgs, Soul Blast 1 gives stuff 2k. So not only is this card 4 extra copies of Sin Buster, it is also a way for you to dump your soul to Turbo Legion, which is pretty good. So I personally see no reason to play 4 Dryons over 4 Baron Graders just because Baron Grader acts as 4 extra copies of your main ride and it can empty soul on rear. So I think this card is just better than Dryon in every way because I don't think Dryon's a particularly good backup ride to begin with, or a ride you want to go into at all. But yeah. But the one-up is the Dryon. His skill is he Legions with the Lionetter, 12k attacker, and then when he attacks a Vanguard, if you are in Legion and you're 30k or greater, he gets a crit and he gets on hit retire 1. And then when this unit attacks, if you have a card in the middle column, plus 3k. So scaling and then crit that can push damage, I guess, which is okay, and then retire 1. The reason you don't really need this crit to push anymore is because the Metalborgs Stride, the Heavy Duke, gets a crit now, so that does the crit drop for you, so you don't really need to push for that much extra damage. So this is why just Sin Buster's drawing a card just infinitely better than Dryon getting crit and then getting retire. So yeah. And then finally, the last card is the Heal Guards. Heal Guards. You don't. Specifically in this deck, it doesn't need to check a grade 3 or anything like that, in something like Daikaiser, so you definitely do play Heal Guards in this deck, no questions about that. And that's it for the triggers, and I'm grade 3 triggers, and finally the G-Zone. First off, the card that makes this deck this good, playable to begin with is the Heavy Duke. Its skill is, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if your heart is a Metalborg, you CB2 and get the following skills. On hit, draw a card per heart. So if you're in Legion and this thing hits, i.e. they're not at 4 or 5 and it hits, you get to draw 2. Pot of Greed's pretty good, right? Pot of Greed is pretty good, so you get to draw 2. But it also has the additional skill. In addition, your opponent must discard a grade 3 or higher if they were to guard this attack. And if you have 2 hearts, you get a crit. So I'll just break this down. So when this unit attacks, if your heart's a Metalborg, you CB2 and you get the following skills. On hit, draw 1 per heart, and if they want to guard with PG, they have to discard a grade 3 or higher. If you have 2 hearts, it also gets a crit along with it. So you CB2, let's just say they're at 3 damage. You're not playing crits in this deck, right? So they're just if your opponent's at 3 or less damage and you stride in this thing, it's a draw 2. If they're at 4, you're asking for a glory check. You're asking for a glory check, which is pretty good when your Vanguard is constantly over the 1 heal guard threshold. So you either ask for a PG grade 3 or you ask for multiple heal guards. And if they hits, they die. So pretty good. But the reason why glory skills like this are pretty good in G is because everyone is just tossing grade 3s left and right to stride. So Your opponent will have to be more conservative with their grade 3s if they don't want to just die to Heavy Duke. In fact, that's crit, that means your opponent doesn't have to be a 5 against something like Sinbuster. And then the fact that it also has the skill where if you're not clear checking, you still use this as a draw 2 is also pretty good, because draw 2 is never a bad thing in this game, right? So yeah. Very good stride, and the reason why this deck is good to begin with. You only play 3 because you'll never realistically go into 4, because it is 2 counterblasts and there's no counter charge in this deck, other than the PGs, so that's why you only play 3. And we just fill in the G Zone up with 5 like filler flex spots. The Deep Police event did just end, so we did get some like generic okay strides, so we do fill in slots with that. First off is the X Rogue. His skill is when this unit attack hits if its power is 37k or greater, boost included and everything. Boost and triggers, because you can drive check and then check for triggers and then put the trigger onto the card. You draw 1 and you retire 1 card with priority back row. It's okay filler 1 if it's an okay card, not terrible, not amazing. And then next up is the X Tiger. When this unit attacks Vanguard, flip anything to give this unit 4k, and then if your power is 45k greater, it gets a crit. So it does check for the 4k that it gets from off its own skill before checking to see if it gets a crit or not. And it includes boost, just so you know. So yeah, okay card. It's an okay card. It's a cheaper way to get the crit if you just want to crit from the Heavy Duke, but you don't want to pay like 2 counterblasts for it. So okay card, not terrible, not amazing. Like all these other strides that are not Heavy Duke. And finally, we have Medu, the Cray Elemental. Very good card actually. And then on play, if your Vanguard's base power is 10k or lower, you can add a grade 3 from your drop them back to your hand. And then this last skill just says it can be in include any deck because it's a Cray. So how this works, if you don't know, with Medu is that if you are in Legion, or if your heart, that's if your heart is 10k or lower, right? How this works is if you're in Legion with the grade 2, it checks you have both a Vanguard that's 11k and a 9k base, meaning that when you stride over a Legion to Vanguard, you technically have a 9k Vanguard, meaning the skill's effect does actually work. So this is your best stride that you go into when you just don't want to do anything for the turn. That's the best way to put it. Like you don't have the resources to do anything, so you stride into this thing just to toss a card, stride, draw 1, and then just add your stride water back. Or you can just use, yeah, that's basically what it used for in every deck to play. It's just like a good sandbag stride. The best way to put it. So yeah. Pretty good card. And then finally, one of is the Harmonics Messiah. On play, choose any number of locked cards, unlock them, and then per card you locked, you get to discard 1. So since the discard is not part of cost, if you have 1 card in your hand and you unlocked 5, you just toss the 1 to unlock all 5. Just something to note there. So yeah, just the okay filler 1 up against Link Joker. Against anything else, you just flip it up with this, or just leave it in your G zone as is. So yeah. So that's it for this deck. Pretty fun deck, if anything. I don't think it's amazing or anything. Very playable, but pretty fun deck. Have some game for you guys after this, as per usual, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.